Hey everyone, welcome to Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG podcast. I am your host for the day, Eric, and unfortunately, Hat could not make it this weekend. He had other things he had to do, but he will be back next weekend and everything will be normal as always. But for now, it's only me here today, and I'm just here to give my thoughts on a couple things that happened this week. We'll definitely get thoughts from Hat when he comes back, but I thought I at least try to, try to give a couple things, a couple of thoughts of my own. There are a couple things on the news this week, so this week might be kind of a little more like a, kind of like a news rating, give my comments, but that's kind of the deal when it's just you here. But anyways, just looking at the subject and topics I'm looking at today, I want to talk about the Final Fantasy 15 DLC that was actually announced really recently from Tabata and his group, and I want to talk about Yuji Horii talking about Dragon Quest XI not having any microtransactions or DLC, and they've also talked about censorship and how that's going to be in the game for the West. Dragon Quest Builders 2, they went in a little more detail about it. They have announced what they're going to do first in the upcoming patch for Chrono Trigger, the Steam version and mobile version. And let's see. Divinity Original Sin 2 got a console port. Or going to get a console port, I'm sorry. And Unsung Story shows off its prototype. The new company that took the IP name and started working on it are finally showing off a couple things that they're doing. So I just want to go over that today. And all right, so let's get started on the first one. First one we have is, well, I'm sorry, but I'll tell you what I've been playing this week before we do. I've only been playing more Breath of the Wild and Dragon Quest IX. I'm in one of those moments right now where I kind of want to get back to those type of things, relaxing type of games, and both of those definitely meted. Breath of the Wild was definitely the greatest game of 2017, and probably for this entire generation for me. It definitely was checked off a lot of things that I look for in video games, and Breath of the Wild is not my favorite Zelda, but it's definitely up there. Dragon Quest IX, I felt like I didn't do absolutely everything that game offered, so I've been kind of going through it again, grinding here and there for gear and stuff like that. And I'm trying to be completionist on that because I've done a lot in the previous ones, and I wanted to do that also. In Zelda Breath of the Wild, I'm just doing master mode for it, and 100%ing that because I 100% as much as I could in the other one. The DLCs I did, I got all the Korok seeds, I got the gear upgraded, just you name it, I did it. It says 100% on there, and that's one I'm very proud of. And I'm doing it over again because I'm crazy like that. But, anyways, the first topic we talked about was Final Fantasy 15 getting DLC that's planned to start in 2019, and me and Hat talked about what we thought would be coming up. We knew Arden was a given, but we also mentioned things like Ariana and Luna and Iris, the Demon Slayer, is one that we really wanted. But we did find out that it is going to be episode Arden, episode Noctis, which is a strange but interesting one, episode Luna, and episode Arania. So, I was 3 out of 4 right. The Noctis one was kind of surprised because he's the main character. You're always him anyways. But I think they're actually going to be divulging into something different. And I mean, you guys know my thoughts on Final Fantasy 15. I don't care for it. If you look at any episodes previous, I don't care for it. I don't care how it was structured, and I think they really dropped the ball on what this game could have been. But I just want to talk about the context of the DLC today and just give my criticisms of that itself, because if these DLCs actually come together and actually make something great, it could make Final Fantasy potentially a good enough entry, even though the way we got it was definitely like just the worst way imaginable. But I'm looking through this DualShockers article who covered it, and this was during PAX East. And they say in a future update, players will be able to create their own avatar, pretty much like the Comrades expansion. A couple cool things like that. And they're coming out with a level editor and mod tools for PC. Level editor will come, but it'll take a bit more time. It'll be released in the fall 2018. And the video below you can check out, and they're including new quests, dungeons, chocobo races, a bunch of small stuff that you would probably find in like a DLC expansion like this. And I just want to get down to the episodes here. Okay, so in the article it says the first episode is episode 1, Arden. For the moment, the working title is The Conflict of the Sage. Keep in mind that by reading the description of each DLC in the gallery at the bottom of the post, you'll be exposed to relevant spoilers about the story in the main game, so do at your own risk. He is right. If you not played 15, you don't want to know these, then I'm this is going to be kind of very spoiler territory. So, so the first is going to be Arden, and it looks like it's going to go more into the story of how he became to be, how he inflicted with the Astrals, the story of how he took all these demons in, and it started getting to him, and the Astrals are like, whoa. It's like, okay, we gotta calm down and throwing everything at this guy. We kind of need to get him out of here and put someone new to the throne. That's basically the gist of what happened to Arden. But it does look like they are going to divulge more into that, and perhaps more into what Arden was doing in the events of the game. So I think that's actually a more interesting one, because I've said it before, and the group DLC based off your main characters, like Episode Prompto, Ignis, and Gladios, like, I argue these should have been in the main game, because the game is pretty much about these 4 characters, and you're leaving out crucial information and context from this. So actually getting DLC based off characters that were not part of your main group and off doing their own thing, I think something like this is all right, because this is something that feels like it actually adds to the experience, not just like feel like it's just picking out of the main game. Excuse me. So it does seem interesting enough that Arden is getting his own DLC. I am intrigued to see that one. The next one is episode side story, Arania, or however that's pronounced. And it's going to be titled The Beginning of the End. Now, this one, I'm kind of wondering where they're going to go with it. Is it going to be like, while she's been like a mercenary captain for the Empire, does she start seeing the wrong ways of the Empire? And she just wasn't very open about it when we talked about it in that dungeon with her? Or is it going to be like after the sequence where Noctis and his group entrust her, Biggs, and Wedge to watch the people on the train? And maybe we could possibly see her saving people from Tenebrae. Maybe she goes out and does that. Any excuse to go into Tenebrae would be great, because we never got to go in that dungeon in Final Fantasy 15. And it just, it infuriated me to no end. I'm like, oh great, we get to finally see the inside of Tenebrae. I kind of saw this in the movie, and this is like somewhere I really wanted to go. And we never went there, and it just really disappointed me. So maybe this is the opportunity, and if not, then maybe in this upcoming one, episode 2, the next episode, Luna Freya, and it's going to be called Choice of Freedom, maybe we do get to see more of Tenebrae. Maybe we do get to see more of that through her episode then. Maybe when it's like not in a state of chaos or anything. Like, I think if there's any character that needed to get more on, it was definitely Luna Freya. We did not get enough of her. Did not get enough of her and Noctis together at all. We only got to see them little interactions through the notebook and with their kids. And when we finally see them both as adults together, they never actually have a conversation together. She dies before like Noctis can even say anything to her. So I don't know. That one just baffled me because like the promotional material everywhere was just Noctis and Luna, like arguably just as much as him and the three other main characters with him. Like they had promotions everywhere for Luna. Like she's gonna be this big character, and like her events in the story are just gonna make such a big difference. And they really didn't much. She helped summon Leviathan. That's really the most she did. She like her contribution to the main story itself was really weak. Like even in the movie, she was just kind of there, and like there for the Empire and everything. But and she screwed around with a bit and with them, but she didn't really do much. I feel like you could take her out and rewrite just a tad bit, and it wouldn't greatly change the story at all. Noctis still has to go out and get these powers to defeat the Empire, and Luna Freya just felt like a side thing. So hopefully this episode can give a little more detail to what she was doing during the events of 15. This is like information I'd really like to know also. I'd want to like the character Luna Freya, but I can't even say if I like her or don't like her because we never really got time with her. I kind of like that she had this like, tough girl attitude, and she's willing to get stuff done, but we just never got to see it. So that one's really baffling to me, and I hope this one can get a little more detailed about it. In the last episode they were talking about is Noctis himself. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, he's the main character. So this is going to go, I'm thinking like sometime when he is not in the, or when it's not in the plot of the main game. So it says here in the article, the last episode will be episode 3, Noctis, titled The Final Strike. The title of the whole lineup is Dawn of the Future, and they will be directed by Takafumi Torada, who is also the helm of episode Ignis. Okay, so that's the most I can say. Or rather, if they want to do something like alternate, I'm not a fan of the non-canon alternate stuff because it doesn't really give us what we want. It's just giving us a different variation of something we may have wanted. But that's really all I can say for now. We need more information on that to really know what they're talking about. And let's see here. To accompany the new line of DLC, a brand new theme song is being composed by Final Fantasy 15 maestro Yoko Shimomura. Well, you can check out the calendar for releases. So let's see here. Which this article is kind of in order with stuff. It's they're doing a couple other things. Collaboration with Shadow of the Tomb Raider has been announced. More of the crossover crap they do. Below, you can see more images of the slides during the panel. If you're not familiar, let me kind of look through the panels here. Apparently, they're going to put DLC in where you can put treasure somewhere and people have to find it. It's kind of reminding me of the Mario Odyssey DLC where they put a certain balloon somewhere, and you had to get there before the timer went out, and some people just did some crazy creative things. So I think this is a pretty neat way to do online interactivity with people without actually interfering with the main game. So, if they want to add something small and silly like this, whatever, that's cool, I suppose. Yeah, they talked about the modding. You'll be able to officially mod the game, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have a thing where they approve it before it gets on there. So none of the naked mods that they were mentioning, if you try to submit that, they will probably deny it. Not officially, but we can see how that goes. Maybe someone can make a better game with the mod. Oop, shouldn't have said that out loud. Yeah, they talk about the level editor. This looks like PC also, looking at it. It's a thing. Make your own Final Fantasy 15. I don't know. Refer back to the previous joke I made. Maybe you can make a better game out of it. Um, oh, they list here actually what you can do with it. Creation of original maps, creation of simple quests, placing of enemies, placing of items, and creation of sequences. Trigger boxes that will initiate events, assigning motion to certain characters, camera controls, and simple UI creation. Dang, they really are just giving you tools to make your own 15. Maybe they're like, oh, we give up. Can't make it good. Here, you take it. Let's see here. They're adding boss editions. There's a picture of the president of Square Enix there. So maybe they're officially bringing him back in now. More raid bosses, battle challenges for the online mode. Let's see. Looks like that's about everything. They talk about... I think I actually got a couple details here. Episode 1, Arden, the Conflict of the Sage. This story portrays the struggles of Arden, witness the resentment he harbored towards Lucius for over 2,000 years, and clashes with Astrals. Oh, man, I should have read these first. Episode side story, Rania, the beginning of the end. A side story about the Stars Scourge depicted from Niflheim's perspective. The final day of the Empire turns out to be Arania's worst day. Okay, so it does kind of take after, it sounds like I said before. These images were kind of hidden. It was kind of weird. But let's see if I was accurate with it. Episode 2, Luna Freya, the choice of freedom. This story is about Luna's fate, which not even death can free her from. Her battle to save one she loves overturns the destiny dealt to the Lucian King. So we're going to get something about her after she dies. Let me read that again. The story is about Luna's fate, which not even death can free her from. Her battle to save the one she loved overturns the destiny dealt to the Lucian King. So, is it possible, like, when Noctis is in his hibernation for 10 years, is there something she does to prevent him from being destroyed or, like, in there forever? Maybe she's the reason he was able to get out? I'll be interested to see where that goes, but that's very different than what I thought. Episode 3, Noctis, The Final Strike. DLC number 4. Parting ways with the Astrals, Noctis embarks upon his final battle in order to attain the ideal future for all his people. I don't really get that. Parting ways with the Astrals, Noctis embarks on his final battle in order to attain the ideal future for all his people. This is obviously something to do with the ending. So what I'm wondering is this going to be like right between he defeats Arden and sacrifices himself? Or is this going to be like after he sacrifices himself, but something happens and that ending makes more sense that happened at the end? Like, I kind of thought that was like his idea of heaven, where he's sitting there on his throne as king and Luna is down there, to his side and like as the queen. And I kind of thought like he died and that was just like his vision of heaven, but maybe that's like an actual final ending. Maybe they'll change the ending around to make it so he did survive it. Maybe they're changing the canon of it. If that is the truth, then I don't really agree with that. I think it was pretty bold to let Noctis die at the end of it. And I actually thought it was pretty nice that, him having his version of heaven. I thought that landed well enough. I mean, how it got there obviously was not great, but that was great. We don't always need a happy ending to our Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy X didn't have the happiest ending. We had Titus as the Titus was actually part of the faith the whole time. So he had to go back after sin was destroyed in New Yevon. So it would be really off-putting to me if they just retconned this and said, "Oh, something happened in between Noctis getting sacrificed and with the kings, and it turns out that everyone's okay. Even Luna Freya, the power of love and magic brought everyone back." I really hope it's not that. Or if they do, because they did mention they were going to put an alternate ending in this. I'm sorry I forgot to mention that. But I really hope that doesn't have to do with this. This would really disappoint me if that was the case. But, I mean, I guess it would remain to be seen. Maybe they just want to do something to bring more context to everything. Instead of leaving it to be an ambiguous ending, make it like it makes complete sense what happened. But, I don't know. Sometimes it's better left to the interpreter's imagination to what happened, and it could be better for that. Now you're just kind of answering it for us when you said before that, oh, just leave it up to your imagination on what happened. And then a few months later, Tabata says, "Oh yeah, by the way, the three other main characters survived." It's like, oh, well, thanks, Tabata. But anyways, that looks like most of what is going on here. A lot of it seems like DLC for the online portion also, and it looks like you can use the main character, your created character, in the main game in some way. But it looks like, according to this, the Comrades updates are going to be 2018, and the DLC episodes we've been talking about has been set for 2019, starting in the winter of it, near springtime. So it's going to be a little while till you see this. This is going in up into summer, according to them. So it's going to be a long while till you see these, but it looks like they're going to keep the Comrades up as much as they can during the course of 2018. So we will see how that goes. Of course, I'm going to be looking at it from a critical eye. So I don't know if you're going to expect anything great out of me, but okay. All right, let's go to our next topic here. One I'm probably going to be even more positive about, or positive again, is Dragon Quest XI, the game that's coming out September 4th, something I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I've said it before here that Dragon Quest is easily my favorite RPG series. It just has a level of consistency and sense of adventure and high quality that I really look for in my JRPGs. I like a level of simplicity in my games with a lot of depth to it. That's why I'm also a big fan of Zelda. I like it when you make things simple, but you give me creative control on how to take on the content, and that's where the depth lies in. And Dragon Quest, even itself, accomplishes that a lot for me. So you go on the adventure how you see fit, but even though you do have a goal. But in this recent interview, they were talking about microtransactions and DLC for Dragon Quest XI. And they essentially were talking to Yuji Horii, and they were asking if they were going to implement these things. And he's actually not going to. He's not going to put any microtransactions and DLC into the game, even for the Western version. And on quotes, I'm reading from an article from Siliconera. And it says here in quotes that Dragon Quest XI is a very big game that took a lot of money to develop. So we looked into a lot of different ways of making money back on it. But in the end, there's that return to the root series idea. We thought in this current climate of all these games having microtransactions, we really wanted to go back to the idea of having one game you buy, and that's it. And he is... I am so glad he's doing this. It's not necessarily that I have a problem with DLC. On paper, DLC is great. You buy a game for $60, you finish it, and then they give you more content you can play on it. But obviously, you've seen everyone who's talked about DLC ever. It's being mishandled a lot. Or it's being criticized by others for being mishandled a lot, and it's just gotten worse over the years. You know, the whole loot box debacle and everything. But I'm not going to talk much about that. But overall, it's very nice to just play a game, let it be done. Yeah, I pay my $60, give me a complete game, and that's it. There's, I wish there wasn't more to it than that, but a lot of games today need to make it more than that, especially single player games. I understand like very online heavy focus games like Monster Hunter World, you need to keep constantly adding stuff, even though they're doing it free. I'm sorry, I should read that. Maybe Monster Hunter World's not the best example, um, but I'm glad they're doing everything to keep to the series roots, which is kind of funny to say that because Dragon Quest X certainly did break away from the traditional side of things. They made it into an online game. I did hear they did a lot to keep it like the traditional Dragon Quest. Like, it has a great world and story, Dragon Quest X, but it still added online elements, and because of that, we weren't able to get it here in the West. I think they just believed that it wouldn't do well here in the West, and no point keeping servers up for it. Which I can't say if they're right or wrong. Dragon Quest is a very iffy series when it comes to the West, and they do blame a lot of it on the animation design, so I can't blame them too much on that. I mean, Western preferences are a lot different than ones in the East, but I mean, I'm someone who's a fan of Akira Toriyama's artwork, but yeah, but kind of stuff like that we just didn't get Dragon Quest X for, and hopefully I get to play it in some way one day. Maybe I'll download it and try to use some kind of translator to get through it and try to get through the offline story portions. But I did hear it's great regardless. But I'm glad Dragon Quest XI it's just going completely back to series roots, and I'm glad they're adding some modern takes onto it, like no random encounters or anything. So I'm glad they're just keeping to the roots. That's the most I can really ask for from things like this. So I'm just looking through here. Yuji Horii actually commented more about video games today in the same article, and he says the evolution of the hardware is just amazing. The fact that we've come to the stage where we can do open world games is just amazing. When I was working on Dragon Quest I, we originally had such a small, limited area for the whole world. A small space to explore. But now I just work with the images in my head. My vision can go straight down on the screen, and that is amazing. So, yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, like Zelda Breath of the Wild is just really feels like what they imagined or what they wanted Zelda 1 to be. And it's amazing how friggin' evolved video games have gotten today. And yeah, I mean, I agree with them. I've been playing games ever since the NES era, and just thinking about it back then, if I told myself when I was like 5 years old what stuff's gonna look like today, I would just go crazy. But I'm glad Dragon Quest team is very happy with the way things have turned out, what they're able to do. But that's the most I can say about that. They did also mention that there was going to be no censorship. I mean, there's going to be no censorship in the context of they're not going to change anything from the Japanese version, apparently. So you will get your le poof poof scenes when you look for them. They're not going to be taken away. I mean, what we get in the Japanese version is what we're going to get in this one. I imagine they never went too far that it would go past the teen rating on it. But, I mean, it's simple as that. I know some people really get up on censorship in the West. And, you know, sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's not. But the thing is that different cultures and different countries have different takes on what is considered appropriate and not appropriate, and it is in the best interest of the developers, whoever they localize this for, to make sure that they don't do anything that potentially harms their sales. And something as small as censorship can really affect the games, because especially if you're trying to come to a general audience with it, or at least a teen audience with it, you do have to be really careful with these things. I don't always agree with every decision they make. Sometimes they go a little too far, like maybe like 4 kids too far, replacing a cigarette with a lollipop. But it never goes. I've never seen one really go too far that you can't enjoy the game. Now, sometimes I see a lot of nitpicks, But I mean, that's mess I have to say about that. But alright, so I'll move on from all the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest to actually more Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest Builders 2 is confirmed to take place more around the time of Dragon Quest 2. And it's actually going to feature on an island that we're not exactly sure what it is yet, where it's based off of, but it is set during the Dragon Quest 2 time, and Malroth, the final boss of Dragon Quest 2, is actually in the game, but he is actually not a bad guy. He is actually a good guy. Apparently he lost his memories or something, and he's like an assistant NPC in that game. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. That's no, that's I didn't expect that, especially from a Builders game. But I did play Dragon Quest Builders 1, and it's a really fun game. I'm not usually into the Minecraft type of deal here, but Dragon Quest Builder was very focused. It gave you a nice amount of small goals to do, and it led up and it had, story to it also. And it was really great, and I think I talked about it here before and recommended it. I still recommend it, and I can't wait to see the second one come. And it's going to be really cool to see what they do with Malroth. But so far they haven't given too much detail on what's different, what's not different. It kind of does look like more of an expanded version of Dragon Quest Builders 1. Kind of similar to Dragon Quest Heroes series. Heroes 2 conceptually was pretty much like just a different take on Dragon Quest Heroes 1. They didn't do too much to change the formula. They only did like more minor things and more stuff with like the online features, but we'll see about that. I'll talk about it more when they get more information. And who do we got next here? The Chrono Trigger patch is coming. So they mentioned that they are sometime this month in April, they're going to release the patch that lets you turn it back to the original pixel version of the game, not the quote-unquote high definition that they mentioned in that article. Actually, I wouldn't know if I can agree to the high definition take, but I don't think they'll ever admit that it was bad looking, even though it is. But at least that's the first thing. But it wasn't just the graphics that were bad. I mean, they did a poor job with the user interface. I mean, like, it looks like I see all these like Times New Roman looking stuff, and it's just it really is an eyesore. I will say it's not an absolute deal breaker if you absolutely want to play Chrono Trigger and like your tablet or phone or PC is the way to do it. If you want to get it the legit way and not through like a Super Nintendo emulator or anything. Not saying to do it. I'm just saying that's that's how you get the original version without buying the Super Nintendo version, or the DS version. DS version is actually the definitive version, in my opinion. Even though Chrono Trigger is my favorite RPG, nostalgically, the Super Nintendo one I like the most, but the DS version, I think, technically is the definitive one. So it'll be cool. They said there's going to be even more patches coming up, so maybe they will fix the interface to look more like the Super Nintendo version, or they'll actually make a better interface from it. I have my doubts on better, but if they can at least get it back to the way it was, at least for the Steam version, because the touch version I can kind of understand. You kind of have to make big button, so when people press it, they're not like pressing like a tiny little button they're trying to find on there, especially with an ATB base game. So I do understand on that, but I hope for at least the Steam version they give the original experience back, okay, and in a HD like resolution and quality. So yeah, we'll see what they do with that, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be anything too grand. I think they kind of learned their lesson here, that they just can't release whatever they want on Steam. Let's see here. What do I have next? Divinity Original Sin 2 got console ports. I saw people talking about this week. So, I mean, it's kind of more like an announcement. I don't have too much to talk about. I've never really played this game. But people talk really high about it. But now it's coming to PS4 and Xbox One. it's going to have God, I don't really know too much about this stuff, but it looks like a Diablo-esque type game where you're controlling a character around like a 45-degree angle field, and it's like a very open-esque world RPG. Maybe not too heavy on the story, but I heard like the gameplay and the sense of adventure of it's really good. So I do kind of want to try it. I do feel like the interface is kind of more catered to PC, and I may want to try it out on my PC. But I mean, everything looks great in it. The artwork is beautiful. The I think that's the best I can say about it so far. I'm sorry if it's a little disappointing that I don't have too much more to say on this, but a lot of people brought it to my attention that this is really big news, and I felt like I just wanted to share a bit of that. But I'm going to try it out myself when it's on sale or don't have as much to do on my plate. I already have enough backlog as it is. I'm deciding to play games I've already beaten, so my mind is all over the place on that. But let's see. It's going to be a bit of a shorter episode. So the last one is going to be about Unsung Story. Unsung Story was, whew, man, that thing has got a history on it. It was a Kickstarter, I believe, that happened in 2014, 2015, and the original creator of Tactics, or person who directed Tactics, Matsuno, had a great idea to make his own IP, similar to how like Tactics Ogre was, or Final Fantasy Tactics, but this would be like his own thing, not labeled by Square Enix. And I believe this is around the time where he still was very heated with the company. So he went to Kickstarter with another company and got funded for this to make a Final Fantasy Tactics-like game, but under a new IP. And this thing just went through hell the whole way through. The company wasn't giving proper updates. Matsuno himself left the project and left it to this company. The company was turning it and like putting online features and stuff in that people didn't want or didn't ask for. And they said that's the reason why it's taking so long to release it. And everyone's like, we don't care about the multiplayer. Just get it out. In the single player, and add the multiplayer stuff later, like Shovel Knight did. Shovel Knight gave you the base game, and then they just they just just put so many different things in it, and it's so baffling on why they did that. You know, with the money that they likely didn't have to do it, I think they were trying too much to make it like a modern-ass game when they just needed to release the game itself. And I don't know. It was just... but long story short, that company didn't deliver. And instead of just giving people money back, saying, sorry, we canceled it, they ran off with the money. And this new team came in. I'm trying to remember their name. I'm looking through a DualShockers article on this one also. It was Little Orbit. And they talk about some here... They did acquire it back in August 2017, I believe, recently actually, and they acquired it. And this is a company that made like games like shovelware titles, so they don't really have a big name title under their belt. So this is really their first opportunity to do so. And they got it, and while they couldn't give the Kickstarter money back, because the previous company ran with that money, so they don't have the money to give back to the people, but they did promise that they were going to give the original idea game that people wanted. They took the multiplayer out, they took a bunch of random other features that they were putting in out there, like, we're going to give you the game that was promised precisely on the Kickstarter, because there was a lot of good ideas here, and we believe that we're up to the task of getting it. And now just recently... because they had to start from scratch. I think they only had like minimal assets to use. So they're going to start from scratch. And now they're just showing us prototypes and job listings of what they're going to be in the game. Things like Sellsword, Physician, Guardian, Archer, Plague Warrior, Elementalist, Sharpshooter, Necromancer, Spellbreaker, Cavalier, Scout, Priest, Berserker, Wild Lord, Saboteur, Shadow, Disciple, Echo Knight, Sword Speaker, Librarian. Wow, that's a lot of jobs you have to balance. That is pretty crazy. And I'm looking through the pictures here. It looks prototype wise. Alright, to give context to a prototype, this isn't like a prototype to like the game assets or anything. They're using purely 3D polygonal images, like generic polygonal images, to represent what they're making, and then just showing off the gameplay. And it looks like they're using like a triangle based system, like similar to make it feel more three-dimensional when coming around and getting behind enemies and such. So it looks like they're using concepts of Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy, but it looks more modern. It just looks a little more realized of what they were trying to do previously. And I think they're finally getting something working here. So everything looks great so far. And it looks like they're very dedicated to making sure that this is a worthy title that Kickstarter is funded. Unfortunately, they don't have any strong record of showing they're capable of doing this. But, you know, anyone with passion is able to make great things. So I'm looking forward to what they have next. But for right now, they just have prototype showing off some of the gameplay parts of it. So that's as much as we're getting right now on it. So I look forward to it. I hope they hear good things about it. Again, sorry for repeating myself. But that looks like everything I have today for today's podcast. I think Final Fantasy 15 was probably the biggest news here today. But if you enjoy us, sorry that it's not as entertaining with that hat here, I'll admit myself. But he'll be back next week. And if you enjoy listening to our episodes, or if you just enjoyed hearing me, you can click on the subscribe button below. You can also check us out on Twitter. We tweet stuff here and there. We're also on iTunes. You can check us out there. And also you can check us on Spotify also now to listen to us while you're playing your games. But that's everything for today. And next week we'll be back to the way things normally are, where me and Hat talking to each other. I do encourage you to look at our previous episodes if this is your first one. But again, I'm Eric. This is Phoenix Edge, an RPG podcast. You all have a great evening.